Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sansad TV on India's presidency of the United Nations Security Council for the month of December. India will decide the UN body's agenda for the month and coordinate important meetings on a range of issues. In the next 20 minutes, I'll take you through the importance of the Security Council, its presidency and the priorities of India. So come along. As World War II was about to end in 1945, nations were in ruins and the world wanted peace. Representatives of 50 countries gathered at the United Nations Conference on International Organization in San Francisco, California from 25th of April to 26th of June 1945. For the next 2 months, they proceeded to draft and then sign the UN Charter, which created a new international organization, the United Nations, which it was hoped would prevent another world war like the one they had just lived through. 4 months after the San Francisco conference ended, the United Nations officially began on 24th of October 1945, when it came into existence after its charter had been ratified by China, France, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and by a majority of other signatories. According to the Charter, the United Nations has 4 purposes: to maintain international peace and security, to develop friendly relations among nations, to cooperate in solving international problems, and to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. Now, more than 75 years later, the United Nations is still working to maintain international peace and security, giving humanitarian assistance to those in need, protecting human rights, and upholding international law. At the same time, the UN is doing new work, not envisioned for it in 1945 by its founders. The United Nations has set Sustainable Development Goals for 2030 in order to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all of us. UN member states have also agreed to climate action to limit global warming. With many achievements now in the past, the United Nations is looking to the future to new achievements. The United Nations Charter established 6 main organs of the UN, including the Security Council. It gives primary responsibility for maintaining international peace and security to the Security Council, which may meet whenever peace is threatened. The Security Council consists of 10 elected members and 5 permanent members: China, US, France, UK, and the Russian Federation. All members of the UN agree to accept and carry out the decisions of the Security Council. While other organs of the United Nations make recommendations to member states, only the Security Council has the power to make decisions that member states are then obligated to implement under the Charter. When a complaint concerning a threat to peace is brought before it, the Council's first action is usually to recommend that the parties try to reach agreement by peaceful means. The Council may set forth principles for such an agreement, undertake investigation and mediation in some cases, dispatch a mission, appoint special envoys, or request the Secretary General to use his good offices to achieve a pacific settlement of the dispute. When a dispute leads to hostilities, the Council's primary concern is to bring them to an end as soon as possible. In that case, the Council may issue ceasefire directives that can help prevent an escalation of the conflict, dispatch military observers or peacekeeping forces to help reduce tensions, separate opposing forces, and establish a calm in which peaceful settlements may be sought. Beyond this, the Council may opt for enforcement of measures, including economic sanctions, arms embargoes, financial penalties and restrictions, and travel bans, severance of diplomatic relations, blockade, or even collective military action. The Security Council held its first session on 17th of January 1946 at the Church House, Westminster, London. Since its first meeting, the Security Council has taken permanent residence at the UN headquarters in New York City. It also travelled to many cities, holding sessions in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in 1972, in Panama City, Panama, and in Geneva in Switzerland in 1990. A representative of each of its members must be present at all times at UN headquarters so that the Security Council can meet at any time as the need arises. Security Council sanctions have taken a number of different forms in pursuit of a variety of goals. The measures have ranged from comprehensive economic and trade sanctions to more targeted measures such as arms embargoes, travel bans, and financial or commodity restrictions. The Security Council has applied sanctions to support peaceful transitions, deter non-constitutional changes, constrain terrorism, protect human rights, and promote non-proliferation. Sanctions do not operate, succeed, or fail in a vacuum. The measures are most effective at maintaining or restoring international peace and security when applied as a part of a comprehensive strategy encompassing peacekeeping, peace building, and peacemaking. Contrary to the assumption that sanctions are punitive, many regimes are designed to support governments and regions working towards peaceful transitions. Decisions of the Security Council on matters are made by an affirmative vote of the members, including the concurring votes of the permanent members. A no vote from one of the 5 permanent members blocks the passage of the resolution. Any member of the UN, which is not a member of the Security Council, may participate without vote in the discussion of any question brought before the Security Council whenever the latter considers that the interests of that member are specially affected. Today, there are 14 ongoing sanction regimes which focus on supporting political settlement of conflicts, nuclear non-proliferation, and counter-terrorism. Each regime is administered by a sanctions committee chaired by a non-permanent member of the Security Council. There are 10 monitoring groups, teams, and panels that support the work of 11 of the 14 sanctions committees.
Has assumed the chairmanship of the United Nations Security Council on 1 December, the same date that it has assumed the year-long chairmanship of the G20. The chairmanship of the Security Council is for 1 month, much like India did in August 2021. At the end of this month, India's 2-year tenure as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council will come to an end. So it is like a crowning glory to be the president of the Security Council in your final month. The Security Council is the primary decision-making body for peace and security in this world. However, over the last several years, it has lost its mojo and is not really able to take effective decisions, mainly because the big powers are unable to agree and often quarrel among themselves. India, therefore, has to play a bigger role, even though as a non-permanent member, to bring its clout onto the world stage and make sure that the countries listen to the Security Council and take decisions and follow resolutions which are meant to create peace and security.
According to the UNSC rules of the procedure, the Council presidency rotates between each of the 15 members of the UNSC in alphabetical order. Countering terrorism and reform multilateralism will be among the key priorities for India as it assumes the monthly presidency of the UN Security Council from December 1, culminating its 2-year tenure as non-permanent member of the 15-nation powerful body. In the UNSC, the Council President has a broad range of procedural powers. They can call and preside over meetings, approve the provisional agenda, issue presidential statements, and sign the record of the Council meetings. Before the presidency begins, the Council Presidency plans the monthly program of work. In practice, the presidency team will consult the other members of the UNSC and discuss the draft program over an informal breakfast. Since the UNSC is the primary organ tasked with the responsibility of maintaining international peace and security, many of the agenda items from India's past presidencies relate to situations of conflict and aggression across the globe. However, UNSC does not take cognizance of every international crisis and armed conflict. While any member state of the UN can place an item on the Council's agenda, only members of the Council can influence the legislative calendar. The members of the P5, a permanent five, play a crucial role in this process. If the P5 is divided on a certain issue, there is a high possibility of disagreement and no resolution, and they will opt to not take up an issue. India's second year of its tenure as non-permanent member of the UNSC will be a period of consolidation and reinforcement of its priorities. New Delhi will finish off its term at the horseshoe table on a high note as it presides over the Council in December. India's stint in UNSC coincided with a turbulent time in global politics. The US withdrawal from Afghanistan, the coup and suppression of democracy in Myanmar, Russia's war in Ukraine, the ongoing impact of the pandemic, the global food, fertilizer, and energy crisis were among key developments in the period that dominated debates in the Council, while conflicts in Africa and West Asia remain a constant theme. In many of these cases, India adopted a position that did not align with that of the West, despite its warm ties with Washington, is a sign of its strategic autonomy. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will travel to New York to preside over signature events in the Security Council on renewed orientation of reformed multilateralism. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and President of the 77th session of the UN General Assembly are also expected to brief the UNSC meeting in December. India's permanent representative to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, steps in as president of a deeply polarized council, where the West has ranged against Moscow. India believes that it has used its stint in the council earlier to project itself as a caring, creative, collaborative, contributory member state, which has been the voice of reason, a bridge builder, and a voice of Global South.
There has been a resurgence of terrorism in recent times. There is also an increased risk of terrorists exploiting the proliferation of digitalization, new and emerging modes of communication, and financing technologies. The existing and emerging threats call for a renewed collective approach to terrorism. This high-level briefing of the Security Council will provide an opportunity for the Council to take stock and build on the recent deliberations of the special meeting of the UN Counter-Terrorism Committee held in India in October. As you know, India holds the chairship of this committee. It would also aim to arrive at a way forward for the global community's collective fight against terrorism. Now, let me take this opportunity to also brief you very, very quickly on the special meeting of the CTC held recently in Mumbai and Delhi. This was the first time that the CTC met outside New York in 7 years, and also the very first time that the Security Council Counter-Terrorism Committee met in India. Adoption of the Pioneer Delhi Declaration manifested the resolve of the Council to deal with the new and emerging threats in a comprehensive manner through a set of recommendations for member states in the short term and the development of a normative framework in the form of guiding principles in a longer term.
Now, when it comes to global terrorism, very little is being done, and most countries are playing it cool, and some are often conniving in it, including in our neighborhood. Recently, India has held 3 counter-terrorism related events in India, including the General Assembly of Interpol and the first ever meeting of the counter-terrorism group of the UN Security Council in Mumbai and Delhi. Through this special session now, India wants to take up the issues which were discussed in India and take them to fruition, and hope that the world realizes that terrorism is a noxious event which must be dealt with firmly, and we would endeavor to build a common consensus on it. This is not easy, but I think India will use all its goodwill to achieve this.
As India takes over the presidency of the UNSC, it will double down on its core agenda of pushing UN reforms and countering terror. Few dispute India's claim to be a permanent seat in the Council as the world's largest democracy, as a major contributor to UN in various dimensions, including peacekeeping, as the world's fifth largest economy, poised to become the third largest by the end of the decade, as a tech leader, as a provider of solutions to global issues. This is not the first stint for India as a non-permanent member of the UNSC. Since the establishment of the Council in 1945, India has held a two-year term as a non-permanent member in the years 1950, 1967, 1972, 1977, 1984, 1991 and 2011. India has the objective criteria such as population, territorial size, gross domestic product, economic potential, civilizational legacy, cultural diversity, political system, past and ongoing contributions to UN activities, especially to UN peacekeeping operations, for permanent membership. Permanent Representative Ruchira Kamboj has underscored that India's position is clear and well known. New Delhi wants early reform and the Security Council needs to be expanded in both permanent and non-permanent categories, as well as the question of the veto. India has also highlighted the need for a consolidated text to serve as the basis for negotiations, and this has been espoused by a majority of UN member states.
Focus is on two major themes. One, an all-encompassing theme focused on building a new orientation towards reformed multilateralism. And a second theme will be a focus on the global counter-terrorism approach and the way forward. So let's first turn to reformed multilateralism. It is very clear that the UN of today is far from reflective of the true diversity of the UN's wider membership. 22 years after world leaders called for comprehensive UN Security Council reforms, we have not moved an inch, and there is even lack of a negotiating text. Similarly, the global development architecture outside the United Nations is equally distorted and would require intense efforts to enhance the coherence and consistency of the international monetary, financial, and trading systems. There is a ray of hope, if I may put it that way. During high-level week in the course of UNGA 77, 76 countries favoured UNSC reforms and 73 spoke for UN reforms. This is not a serendipitous coincidence, but a reflection of the thinking of the wider membership.
India was the Security Council President in August 2021 as well. During its August presidency, India organized high-level signature events on maritime security, peacekeeping and counter-terrorism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired the high-level open debate on maritime security, and the Council unanimously adopted a presidential statement on maritime security that recognized the importance of enhancing international and regional cooperation to counter threats to maritime safety and security. India's month-long presidency of the powerful UN Security Council in August 2021 ended with substantive outcomes on key global issues, including a strong resolution on the situation in Afghanistan that reflected India's views and concerns and demanded that the Afghan territory not be used to threaten any country or shelter terrorists. The maritime security event was chaired by Prime Minister Modi himself, which saw participation from several world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. This was also the first Security Council meeting chaired by an Indian PM.
पायरेसी और आतंकवाद के लिए समुद्री रास्तों का दुरुपयोग हो रहा है। अनेक देशों के बीच मैरीटाइम डिस्प्यूट्स हैं और क्लाइमेट चेंज तथा प्राकृतिक आपदाएं भी मैरीटाइम डोमेन से जुड़े विषय हैं। इस व्यापक संदर्भ में अपनी साझा सामुद्रिक धरोहर के संरक्षण और उपयोग के लिए हमें आपसी समझ और सहयोग का एक फ्रेमवर्क बनाना चाहिए। ऐसा फ्रेमवर्क कोई भी देश अकेले नहीं बना सकता। ये एक साझा प्रयत्न से ही साकार हो सकता है। इसी सोच के साथ हम इस महत्वपूर्ण विषय को सुरक्षा परिषद के समक्ष लेकर आए हैं।
After the Cold War, the world faced new kinds of threats to its peace and stability. Regional and local conflicts based on deep-rooted historical, social, economic, ethnic and other factors are rampant, threatening to plunge the world into even greater instability. Furthermore, the problem of explosive population, poverty and environmental degradation are affecting the entire planet. In this international environment, the UN is expected to play an even more important role than before. In order for the United Nations to be able to fulfill its responsibilities effectively, it must undertake institutional as well as financial reforms. As a founding member of the United Nations, India strongly supports the purposes and principles of the UN and has made significant contributions in implementing the goals of the Charter and the evolution of UN's specialized programs and agencies. India's deepening engagement with the United Nations is based on its steadfast commitment to multilateralism and dialogue as the key for achieving shared goals and addressing common challenges. India strongly believes that the United Nations and the norms of international relations that it has fostered remain the most efficacious means for tackling today's global challenges, including those related to sustainable development, poverty eradication, environment, climate change, peace building and peacekeeping, terrorism, disarmament, human rights, migration, and health during the pandemic. The UN has also an important role in new emerging areas such as cybersecurity, space, and frontier technologies like artificial intelligence. India is steadfast in its efforts to work with the Committee of Nations in the spirit of multilateralism to achieve comprehensive and equitable solutions to all global challenges. As a strong votary of reformed multilateralism, India favors a comprehensive reform of the United Nations and its institutions to make them reflective of 21st century realities, thereby facilitating stronger and collective action. India intends to be a global rule maker and therefore wants to be a member of the expanded UNSC permanent category to have a greater say in the emerging international order. However, owing to the lack of consensus among the P5 members of the UNSC, India has so far remained excluded from the UNSC permanent category. As India's UNSC presidency progresses, it will be interesting to see how New Delhi will utilize this opportunity to push for its priorities, to push for discussions on its priority areas. The presidency offers a unique opportunity to India to display leadership skills, establish itself as a responsible stakeholder, and indicate its commitment to global governance. Well, that's all I could pack for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Goodbye for now.